My parents kicked me out at 18 for being a burden, but 7 years later they brought my sister's 3 kids to my door, so I told them about my success, then kicked them out of my house. Throwaway because my mom is like weirdly active on social media, and honestly I wouldn't put it past her to be on Reddit too. So I guess I should probably start with some background. I'm male, 25, and I grew up in a family that was basically obsessed with academic achievement and being successful or whatever. My dad, male, 56, is this big shot corporate attorney, and my mom, female, 53, is literally a high school principal, which is kind of ironic considering what I'm about to explain. My whole childhood was basically just a constant stream of disappointment because I struggled hard with school. I would study for hours and hours and still barely pass tests. Reading was a complete nightmare. The letters would just kind of swim around on the page, and focusing was basically impossible. But instead of trying to figure out why I was struggling so much, my parents just decided I was lazy and unmotivated and basically just not trying hard enough. Meanwhile, my older sister Holly, female 28, was the perfect child. Valedictorian, college scholarships, the whole deal. She's an accountant at some fancy firm now. Growing up, it was always, why can't you be more like Holly? And Holly never had these problems, and Holly doesn't need us to remind her to do her homework. You get the idea. Honestly, it was exhausting constantly being compared to her. I actually had this amazing 10th grade English teacher, Mrs. Fenton. If you're somehow reading this, you literally changed my life, who pulled my parents aside at conferences and suggested I might have some learning disabilities that should be tested. But my parents completely dismissed it. My dad literally said something like, he doesn't have a disability, he has an attitude problem. And my mom, again a high school principal who should know better, said testing was just a way to excuse poor performance or something like that. Mrs. Fenton ended up secretly helping me anyway, giving me these reading strategies that actually helped a bit, but she never labeled it as special help, so the other kids wouldn't know and I wouldn't get bullied or whatever. She was literally the only adult who seemed to give a shit about me back then. Anyway, fast forward to 7 years ago. I had barely graduated high school. My parents were so embarrassed they skipped my graduation ceremony because there was nothing to celebrate. Yeah, that didn't hurt at all. I told them I wanted to go to this trade school for graphic design instead of the Ivy League schools they had picked out. This led to the worst night of my life. We were at dinner and my dad I remember it clearly. He called me a financial drain on the family and said they were done throwing good money after bad. My mom said they were tired of making excuses for me to their friends. The worst part was later that night, I overheard my mom on the phone with my aunt saying we've carried this burden long enough. She was talking about me, her son, as a burden. I still think about that sometimes when I can't sleep. The next day, they basically kicked me out. We were at the dinner table, and my dad slid this envelope across to me. Inside was $500 cash. He said something like, "This is more than generous considering everything we've already spent on you." I was like, where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do with just $500? And my dad literally said, that's not our problem anymore, or something similar. Like I was some employee being laid off, not their kid. I remember feeling like I couldn't breathe. Then Holly, who was home from college, jumped in and was like, "You always make everything so dramatic, Tyler." I pointed out that when she was in college, they paid for this nice apartment for her, and my mom had the nerve to say that was an investment in someone with potential. That still hurts to type out, honestly. I started crying, which I'm not proud of, but whatever, and asked for just a little more time to figure things out. My dad stood up and said something like, "Tears never solved your problems before." And then Holly told me I should have tried harder in school if I wanted their support. So yeah, I left that night with a duffel bag of clothes and $500 to my name. I was 18 with nowhere to go. I was honestly lucky that my friend Charlie let me crash on his couch for 3 months while I worked 2 minimum wage jobs, one at a coffee shop in the mornings, one stocking shelves at night. I was getting maybe 4 hours of sleep a night and could barely afford ramen, but eventually saved enough to rent this absolute shithole studio apartment. There was literal mold on the ceiling, but it was mine, you know? But honestly, I was just grateful to have somewhere to sleep that wasn't someone else's couch. The one good thing that happened was meeting Malcolm, male 42, who owns this small marketing firm. He came into the coffee shop every morning and one day noticed me doodling on receipt paper during a slow period. Turns out he had been looking for someone with fresh design perspective for his company. He offered me this apprenticeship thing where I could learn on the job. The pay was still pretty bad at first, but at least it was something I was actually good at. Malcolm actually was the one who suggested I might have dyslexia and ADHD after noticing how I struggled with certain tasks but excelled at others. He helped me get tested when I was 20, and yeah, turned out I had both. Finding that out I can't even explain how it felt, like my whole life suddenly made sense. All those years of being called lazy and stupid and worthless, and it turns out my brain just works differently. I literally sat in my car and cried for an hour after getting the diagnosis. Not sad tears, just relief, I guess. Vindication. Anyway, over the next few years, I worked my ass off, like 80-hour weeks sometimes. I learned everything I could about design, branding, marketing, client relations, everything. Eventually, I saved enough to start my own small branding agency. It was just me at first, working out of my slightly less shitty one-bedroom apartment. Now, 5 years later, I have 8 employees and we work with small businesses all over the state. Last year, I was finally able to buy my own house. Nothing fancy, just a 3-bedroom in a decent neighborhood, but I'm really proud of it. Like, sometimes I still can't believe it's actually mine, you know? During all this time, I barely spoke to my family. My mom sends these birthday texts that always include some backhanded comment like, "Hope you're finally getting your life together," or "Maybe this is the year you'll make us proud." Holly messages me occasionally, but it's always super superficial, like, "Hope you're doing well," with no actual interest in my life. I send obligatory holiday cards, but that's about it. Honestly, sometimes I wonder why I even bother with the cards. But I guess part of me still wants them to acknowledge me. I don't know, it's complicated. So that brings us to last Sunday. I was at home when my doorbell rang. I opened it, and there were my parents, with 3 kids I barely recognized from Facebook photos. My nephews Kevin, 6, and Harry, 4, and my niece Summer, 2. Because, like, what the actual hell? Before I could even say anything, they just pushed past me into the house, the kids looking exhausted and confused. My dad started explaining that Holly had some kind of breakdown after her husband Wesley left them about 3 weeks ago. They were super vague about it, just saying Holly was getting help somewhere and needed someone to take the children for a few months. But they wouldn't give me any actual details about what happened or where she was or anything. Meanwhile, my mom is walking around my living room criticizing my furniture choices. Apparently my couch is too modern, whatever that means, while my dad is making comments about how I have excessive space for just one person. Like, are you kidding me? The first time you visit my home that I bought with zero help from you, and that's what you have to say. Not congrats on buying a house or wow, you've done well for yourself, but criticizing my furniture. Unbelievable. My mom looks at me and goes, "You have all this room in this big house while we're cramped with 3 children. Like it's my fault they took in 3 kids. Like I'm supposed to feel guilty for having space in my own house that I paid for." I asked why they didn't call first to at least discuss the situation, and my dad dismissed it with, "We shouldn't need an appointment to see our son." Funny how I'm suddenly their son again when they need something from me. I tried to get actual information about Holly. What exactly was wrong? Where was she getting treatment? What was the plan? They just exchanged this look, and my mom vaguely said, "She's resting at a facility." Super helpful. Thanks for the detailed information. I asked about Wesley's parents. Couldn't they help with the kids? My dad said they're not reliable people, whatever that means, and then hit me with, "Family should help family." I couldn't help it. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. I pointed out how ironic it was for them to talk about family obligation after kicking me out at 18 with $500. My mom had the nerve to say, "That was different. You were an adult." As if 18 with no support system and undiagnosed learning disabilities is somehow the same as being a fully functioning adult. As if they hadn't literally called me a burden just before throwing me out. Then my dad said, "It's time you finally contributed something to this family." And that was it for me. I took a deep breath, forced myself to stay calm and said, "Let me show you something." I took them to my home office and showed them my company website, my client portfolio, the industry awards I received last year. I explained how I built everything from nothing, without a cent of their support, while managing the learning disabilities they never bothered to have diagnosed. I probably wasn't as calm as I should have been, honestly, but I was trying so hard not to completely lose it. Then I told them, as calmly as I could, that I would not be taking in 3 children I barely know without any preparation. I offered to help find proper childcare and maybe provide some financial assistance. But dropping 3 traumatized kids on my doorstep without warning was completely unacceptable. Like, I don't even have kid beds or toys or anything a child needs. I work 50, 60 hours a week running my business. What was I supposed to do? Just suddenly become a full-time dad to 3 kids I barely know. My dad called me the same selfish disappointment you've always been as they were leaving. My mom was already on the phone with someone, probably my aunt, saying how I refused to help my own sister in her time of need. Because of course they'd immediately start spreading their version of events. And now I'm sitting here feeling like shit. I'm worried about those kids. They looked so confused and scared. But I'm also furious at my parents' entitled attitude. Like, they can treat me like garbage for years and then expect me to just step up whenever they decide I'm useful. Like I'm just some resource they can tap whenever they need something, not an actual person with feelings. I don't know if I handled this right. Those kids are innocent in all this. But the idea of my parents dropping them off and then patting themselves on the back for solving the problem while continuing to treat me like crap, I just couldn't do it. Maybe that makes me selfish, I don't know. But I just couldn't say yes to something like that without any warning or discussion. Edit. Holy crap, this blew up overnight. Thanks for all the supportive comments. To answer some common questions. 1. No, I don't have much of a relationship with the kids. I've only seen them at a couple of big family gatherings and in Facebook photos Holly posts. They wouldn't even really know who I am beyond mommy's brother or something. 2. Yes, I did try to get more info about Holly's condition, but my parents were being super vague. All I know is she had some kind of breakdown after her husband left. They wouldn't tell me what facility she's in or anything useful. 3. Several people have asked why my parents can't continue caring for the kids themselves. That's actually a good question I didn't think to ask in the moment. They're both still working but retiring soon, so it's not like they don't have the time or space. Maybe they just don't want to deal with it. I don't know. Edit 2. A lot of people are suggesting I reach out to Holly directly to get the real story. That's probably a good idea. Our relationship is pretty strained, but maybe this is a chance to reconnect without our parents' interference. I'll try calling the hospitals in her area if my parents won't tell me where she is. Edit 3. To those asking about Wesley, Holly's husband, I've never met him. Holly got married right after I was kicked out, and I wasn't invited to the wedding. All I know about him is he works in finance or something, and they always seemed like the perfect couple on social media. Classic case of things not being what they seem, I guess. I have no idea how to contact him. Edit 4. Someone asked about Malcolm. Yes, we're still close. He's kind of been the mentor I never really had. He actually helped me get the loan to start my business because he believed in me when no one else did. We have dinner at least once a month to catch up. Edit 5. For those suggesting I'm being selfish, I get where you're coming from. I really do. But I live alone, work 50, 60 hours a week running my business, and have zero experience with kids. I don't have cribs or kid beds or toys or anything a child needs. Taking in 3 traumatized children without any preparation or proper information about their situation seems irresponsible, not helpful. I will definitely try to find a way to help that makes sense for everyone involved, especially the kids. I just need actual information and a reasonable plan, not a doorstep ambush. Edit 6. Oh wait, I forgot to mention, they didn't even bring much stuff for the kids. Like one small suitcase for all 3 of them. Were they expecting me to just buy everything? Again, with no warning. Edit 7. Thanks for the awards and stuff, but please don't spend money on that. If you want to do something helpful, donate to organizations that help kids with learning disabilities instead. That would mean a lot more to me. Now for the first update. So a lot has happened since my last post. Like seriously, the past week has been really crazy and I wasn't prepared for it at all. First off, thank you to everyone who commented and sent messages. I honestly didn't expect that many people to read my story or care about my situation. It's kind of weird having strangers on the internet be more supportive than my actual family, but whatever, I guess that's life. Anyway, literally hours after my parents left my house with the kids, my phone started getting tons of texts and calls from extended family members I barely even talked to. Like, where were all these people when I was homeless at 18? My Aunt Virginia called me heartless for turning away innocent children, and my Uncle Wesley went on this whole rant about how family stands by family in times of need. I wanted to ask him where his whole family stands by family philosophy was when I was sleeping on my friend's couch and working 2 jobs just to afford ramen, but I just let it go to voicemail after the first minute. The whole thing felt so orchestrated, like my parents just immediately called everyone in the family with their version of what happened. Of course, they probably left out the part where they showed up completely unannounced with 3 kids and expected me to just, I don't know, instantly become a dad or something, with no warning and no explanation of what was actually going on with Holly. Oh, and by the way, several people asked in the comments of my last post why my parents couldn't just keep taking care of the kids themselves. Great question that I didn't think to ask at the time, but I'm guessing the answer is they just don't want to, which makes their judgment of me even more infuriating. The only person from my family who called with anything helpful was my cousin Sharon, female, 31. She's always been kind of the odd one out of the family because she became a social worker instead of going into business or law or medicine like everyone else. We weren't super close growing up, but we've always had this understanding because we both disappointed the family by not following the approved path or whatever. So Sharon calls me and tells me what's actually going on with Holly because she's pretty sure my parents didn't give me the whole story. And holy shit, she was right. Apparently, Holly didn't just have some vague breakdown like my parents said. She actually attempted suicide and was involuntarily committed to a psychiatric facility. And the reason behind all this, her husband Wesley had racked up like $50,000 in gambling debts using credit cards in Holly's name, then just left, like abandoned her and the kids completely. I felt like I couldn't breathe when Sharon told me this. I mean, I've never been Holly's biggest fan because of how she treated me growing up, but hearing that she was in such a dark place that she tried to, I don't even want to type it out, and those poor kids. They lost their dad and then almost lost their mom too. But I was also furious that my parents didn't tell me any of this. They just showed up expecting me to take 3 traumatized kids without even explaining why their mother was really unavailable or what they'd been through. How was I supposed to make an informed decision about helping when they deliberately hid crucial information from me? I immediately called my therapist for an emergency session. Yeah, I've been in therapy for like 3 years now. Best decision I ever made, honestly. I've been working through all my childhood stuff with her, and she's been amazing at helping me stand up for myself. But even with all that work, I felt so conflicted. Like part of me still felt guilty for not immediately helping with the kids, even though I know logically I had every right to refuse given the circumstances. It's weird how even after everything my family put me through, I still feel this obligation to them. My therapist says that's normal, but it's something we're working on. After talking it through with her, I decided I wanted to help, but in a way that kept my limits while actually providing real support for the kids. Like dumping 3 traumatized children on someone who works 50-60 hours a week and has 0 childcare experience isn't actually helpful for anyone, especially not the kids. So I spent like 2 days researching professional nanny services that specialize in helping kids in tough situations. I found this amazing woman named Jade who has experience with children with parents going through hard times. She seemed perfect, warm but professional, experienced with children who've been through tough stuff and available for full-time care. Then I tried to contact Holly directly. This was complicated. There are all these healthcare privacy rules, and at first the facility wouldn't even confirm if she was a patient there. It took a lot of persistence and eventually speaking to a social worker at the facility to finally get permission to talk to Holly. It was the first actual conversation we'd had in almost 3 years. The call was really difficult. When she first got on the phone, she immediately sounded defensive. I explained I just wanted to understand the situation better so I could figure out how to help. She made a bitter comment about Wesley leaving her with nothing but debt and 3 kids, and I could hear the pain in her voice. I asked about her treatment and how long she thought she'd be there, and she just broke down. She started sobbing, saying she didn't know when she'd be stable enough to take care of her kids again. I offered to help pay for the nanny I'd found, and she got suspicious, asking why I would want to help her after everything between us. I told her I didn't want her kids to experience the kind of abandonment I did, that even though our relationship was complicated, those kids deserved stability and support. She actually apologized for never standing up for me years ago. She said she was sorry she didn't do more when they kicked me out and was too focused on keeping their approval. I didn't know what to say to that, honestly. Part of me wanted to say it's too late for apologies, but another part recognized that she was trying. I just told her it was complicated, but right now we needed to focus on her kids. After a lot of thought and another session with my therapist, Lol, I came up with this plan. 1. I would pay for Jade to provide consistent care for the kids at my parents' house, where they were already somewhat settled. 2. I would set up a college fund for each kid with an initial $5,000 deposit, because God knows what their financial situation will be like with all that debt. 3. I would commit to regular visits to build relationships with my niece and nephews. The only conditions were that my parents had to acknowledge the hypocrisy in kicking me out at 18 with $500, but expecting me to take full responsibility for Holly's 3 kids without warning, and they needed to respect my limits moving forward. I went to my parents' house to present this plan. My mom got all teary-eyed when I arrived, which I'm pretty sure was just manipulation. Like, now you cry about your son. Where were those tears when you were calling me a burden and throwing me out of the house? The meeting went about as well as you'd expect. As soon as I explained my plan, my dad immediately said, "We don't need your charity," in that dismissive tone he always uses with me. My mom jumped in saying, "The children need stability, not a part-time uncle," like I was offering to see them once a year or something. I tried to calmly explain that professional childcare from someone trained to deal with trauma would actually provide more stability than me trying to figure out childcare on the fly while running a business. My dad accused me of showing off my financial success, because apparently offering to spend thousands of dollars a month to help my sister's kids is just me bragging. Whatever. The whole thing changed when the kids came into the room. Kevin, who's 6, asked why everyone was mad again, and my mom quickly said nobody was mad while clearly looking angry. I decided to just ignore my parents for a minute and knelt down to introduce myself to the kids. I told them I was their Uncle Tyler and that I'd really like to get to know them. Harry, who's 4, asked if I was going to take them away too, like their daddy did, and I felt terrible. My parents looked super uncomfortable at this mention of their dad abandoning them. I'm guessing they've been trying to sugarcoat the whole situation. I promised the kids I wasn't going to take them away, just wanted to be part of their lives and help take care of them while their mom gets better. Something about that moment changed everything. Suddenly everyone was seeing things from the kids' perspective instead of just arguing about adult stuff. My mom reluctantly agreed to the nanny arrangement for now, while my dad just sat there looking cold and angry, but at least stopped actively fighting me on it. Progress, I guess. That weekend, I had my first real visit with the kids. I brought over some art supplies, sketchbooks, colored pencils, markers, that kind of thing. We spent a few hours just drawing together and talking. Kevin is really good at spatial design stuff, like surprisingly good for a 6-year-old. He reminded me a lot of myself at that age, except he's got people encouraging his creativity instead of telling him he's not trying hard enough at math or whatever. So that's where things stand now. It's this weird, uneasy truce. Jade started on Monday, and she's amazing with the kids. She's giving them routine and stability while being sensitive to what they're going through. I've been talking to Holly on the phone once a week, and we're, slowly rebuilding something. It's not like we're suddenly best friends or anything, but it feels like maybe there's a path forward. My parents are still being stiff and weird whenever I'm around, but at least they're not actively trying to keep me away from the kids. I still feel this mix of emotions about the whole thing. Proud that I stuck to my limits, hopeful about building relationships with my niece and nephews, a little hopeful about reconnecting with Holly, but still hurt that my parents can't seem to acknowledge how messed up their treatment of me was, even as I'm stepping up to help in a major way. I don't know. Maybe that will never change, but at least I know I'm doing right by those kids, which is more than my parents did for me. Edit. Some people are asking if I've talked to Holly's husband Wesley directly. No, I haven't been able to track him down. According to Sharon, he cleaned out their joint account, took his personal belongings, and just disappeared. Holly had no idea about the gambling debts until collectors started calling after he left. Edit 2. Yes, I did consider just letting my parents handle it themselves, but after seeing how confused and scared those kids looked, I couldn't just walk away completely. They didn't do anything wrong, and they're already dealing with enough abandonment. Edit 3. To those saying I should have just taken the kids in, I understand where you're coming from, but I live alone, work crazy hours, and have zero experience with children. Taking in 3 traumatized kids without any preparation would have been irresponsible. This way, They get professional care from someone trained to help children through trauma, financial security for their future, and a relationship with me. That seems better than me struggling to figure out childcare while working 60-hour weeks. Edit 4. Someone asked if my parents acknowledge their hypocrisy yet. Lol, no. My dad is still barely speaking to me, and my mom keeps making these little comments about how some people just naturally know how to step up, referring to herself, obviously. But I'm not doing this for their approval anymore. I'm doing it because it's the right thing for those kids. Edit 5. For those asking about Malcolm, yes, he's been super supportive through all this. He actually offered to adjust my work schedule so I could spend more time with the kids if needed. That's the kind of mentor he is, the complete opposite of my dad, basically. Now for the second update. So it's been about 3 months since everything blew up with my parents showing up with my sister's kids, and a lot has happened. Like, so much. I'm still trying to process everything, honestly. First, thanks to everyone who commented on my previous posts. Your advice and support has been really helpful during this whole mess. Quick recap for anyone who doesn't remember. My parents showed up unannounced at my door with my sister Holly's 3 kids, Kevin 6, Harry 4, and Summer 2, expecting me to just take them in after Holly had some kind of breakdown, which turned out to be a suicide attempt after her husband cleaned out their accounts, racked up gambling debt in her name, and disappeared. I refused to take the kids without any warning, but ended up arranging for a professional nanny named Jade to help care for them at my parents' house while I built a relationship with them. Anyway, for the past 3 months, I've been seeing the kids twice a week, Wednesday evenings for dinner, and then weekend afternoons for like outings to the park or museums or whatever. It's been actually really nice. Like, I was super nervous at first because I have basically zero experience with kids, but they're actually pretty cool little humans once you get to know them. Kevin, the 6-year-old, is crazy talented with anything visual or design related. I started letting him play with some basic design apps on my tablet, and he picked it up so fast, it's actually kind of scary. This kid can already create better layouts than some of my junior designers, lol. Harry is more into physical stuff. Running, climbing, throwing things. Sometimes things he shouldn't, but whatever. He's 4. And Summer. Oh my freaking god, she was so shy around me at first, but now she literally screams "Unkatai!" and runs at me full speed whenever I show up. I'm not gonna lie, it feels awesome every time. Oh, and something kind of important happened a few weeks ago. I was helping Kevin with some basic reading stuff, and I noticed he was struggling with letter recognition in this really specific way that reminded me of my own childhood. The way he would mix up certain letters and get frustrated when the words seemed to move around on the page, his words. It was just like what I went through as a kid. So I got him tested for learning disabilities, something my parents refused to do for me, despite my teachers literally begging them. Turns out he has mild dyslexia, just like his uncle. I can't even explain how it felt to be able to get him the help that I never got. Like, breaking this whole fucked up family cycle of ignoring problems and just calling kids lazy or whatever. When the specialist was explaining all the early intervention options, I literally had to step out of the room for a minute because I was getting too emotional. It just hit me so hard thinking about how different my childhood could have been if someone had done this for me. As for Holly, she completed her initial intensive treatment program about a month ago and now goes to outpatient therapy 3 times a week. We've actually been talking, like really talking for the first time, maybe ever. She's shown a lot of genuine remorse about how she treated me growing up and for never standing up for me when our parents were being awful. This is gonna sound stupid, but last week when I was helping her sort through some of her stuff that was still at our parents' house, we found this old photo album she had kept hidden in her closet for years. It had all these pictures of me from when I was a kid, pictures I didn't even know existed because my parents had taken them down from the family displays. Like, there was this one of me winning this art contest in 5th grade that I thought nobody even remembered. But Holly had kept it. She said she always looked up to my creativity even though she never said it. I'm not gonna lie, I kinda lost it a little when I saw that album. Just knowing that someone in my family had actually seen me. Even if she never showed it, it meant something. Oh, and I actually hired Holly to work as a part-time virtual assistant for my company. She's really good with organization and numbers. She was an accountant before everything fell apart, and this way she can work flexible hours while still going to therapy and taking care of her kids. It's giving her some desperately needed income, plus rebuilding her confidence, and it's keeping good boundaries between us because it's a professional relationship with clear expectations, not just me giving her money. As for my parents, well, they've been civil but cold these past few months. My dad barely speaks directly to me when I'm there to see the kids. He just kind of grunts acknowledgments and finds reasons to be in another room. My mom makes this surface-level, pleasant conversation, but carefully avoids anything meaningful. It's basically like talking to someone you barely know, not your mother. But whatever, I'm completely over the past hurts anyway, except I'm totally not, because I get really anxious whenever I have to see them, and I rehearse everything I'm going to say before I go over there, and sometimes I still have stress dreams about them telling me what a disappointment I am. But anyway, so everything was going along in this weird but manageable way until last weekend when shit hit the fan again. My parents asked to meet me for coffee to talk about the children's future. I figured this was about Holly's progress and maybe adjusting the childcare arrangement or something, so I agreed. I show up at the coffee place, and my parents are already there with this folder full of papers. My mom pushes it across the table with this weird smile and tells me they found some options. When I asked what options, she pushed the folder closer. I opened it and found real estate listings for huge houses in my neighborhood, like 5-bedroom monster homes that cost literally twice what my current house is worth. My dad told me they'd been thinking about the children's stability, and my mom added that a family should be under one roof. It took me a full minute to realize what they were suggesting. They expected me to buy a house for everyone to live in together, like some big happy family compound or something. When my dad pointed to one listing saying it was perfect for all of us, I realized they didn't just mean Holly and the kids. They were planning to move in too. My mom just nodded and said they needed to be there for Holly and the children, like this was all totally normal and decided. I pointed out that they never actually asked if this was something I wanted or was willing to do. My dad just dismissed me and said I had the means, so why wouldn't I do it? I stayed calm, thank you therapy, and explained very clearly that I had absolutely no intention of purchasing a house for the entire family to live in. My mom looked shocked, like the possibility of me saying no had literally never occurred to her. I thought that was the end of it. But no. 2 days later, my parents showed up at my house with a real estate agent. They just appeared on my doorstep, expecting to give this stranger a tour of my home to check its trade-in value toward the larger house they'd picked out. I blocked the doorway and asked why they brought a stranger to my home without even calling first. My mom just ignored my obvious discomfort and introduced the realtor, like this was all perfectly normal. My dad told me they were moving forward with plans, regardless of my minor objections, and they needed to get the paperwork started. I told them very firmly that no realtor would be touring my home today or any day because I wasn't selling my house or buying a family compound. My mom looked embarrassed in front of the realtor, and my dad accused me of making a scene and being difficult as always, his favorite description of me since I was like 7. Then my mom said, and I remember her exact words, "After all we've done for you growing up." Something just snapped inside me. Not in a yelling way, but in a I'm finally gonna say everything way. I calmly asked the realtor to give us a few minutes of privacy for a family discussion. My parents looked satisfied, clearly thinking they'd won and would be coming inside as soon as the realtor stepped away. As soon as he was out of earshot, I just laid it all out. Everything they hadn't done for me. Never getting me tested for learning disabilities despite multiple teachers recommending it, comparing me constantly to Holly and making me feel worth less, providing zero emotional support when I was struggling, kicking me out at 18 with just $500 and no plan, never once checking if I had food or shelter during that first year on my own, never acknowledging their role in any of my hardships. I explained how I built my company despite their abandonment, how I purchased this home with money I earned through years of 80-hour work weeks, and how I had stepped up to help Holly's children despite having every reason to tell them all to go to hell based on how they'd treated me. Here's the crazy part. In the middle of all this, Holly shows up. She was supposed to meet us for lunch after the house tour that my parents had arranged without telling me. She heard most of what I was saying, and I braced myself for her to side with our parents like she always has. But she didn't. She actually stood next to me and told our parents they needed to acknowledge how badly they'd failed me and stop trying to control everyone under the guise of family support. I literally couldn't believe what I was hearing. No one in my family has ever stood up for me before. My dad just stormed off to the car, but my mom stayed on the porch, looking completely shaken. And then the weirdest thing happened. She started crying and said her own parents had been controlling and critical of her in the exact same way, and she had just continued the pattern without realizing it. It wasn't like a full apology or anything, but it was the first time I've ever seen my mom as an actual flawed human being instead of this perfect, judgmental parent. I didn't know what to say. I'm still hurt by everything they did, but seeing her vulnerable like that was just confusing. So that's where things stand now. Holly found an affordable apartment near my place, and she's moving there with the kids next month. I'm still helping financially and with the kids, but we're maintaining good boundaries. My relationship with my dad is basically non-existent. He refuses to speak to me at all now. My mom has been texting occasionally, just simple stuff like asking how I'm doing or sending pictures of the kids, which is weird, but kind of nice, I guess. There's no perfect happy ending here. We're not suddenly going to be the Brady Bunch or whatever, but I'm starting to realize that I've built something important over these past 7 years, and it's not just my company or my house. It's this sense that I'm actually worth something, regardless of whether my parents think so or not. And honestly, the most important thing to me now is making sure Kevin, Harry, and Summer grow up knowing they're loved and supported exactly as they are. Kevin's going to get the help with his dyslexia that I never got. Harry's energy is going to be channeled into sports instead of being punished, and Summer's never going to be told she's a burden. That's what breaking the cycle actually looks like, I guess. Edit. Just to clarify, because a few people asked, my sister's ex-husband Wesley is still completely MIA. The divorce is proceeding without him. Abandonment makes that easier apparently, and there's some legal stuff happening with the debt he created in Holly's name, but that's a whole other post. Edit 2. No, I'm not going to pursue legal action against my parents for kicking me out at 18. Yes, it was shitty, but it was technically legal, and honestly, I'm trying to move forward, not get stuck in the past. Edit 3. For those suggesting family therapy with my parents, believe me, I've thought about it. But my therapist says all parties need to be willing to do the work, and my dad is definitely not there. My mom might be someday, but we're taking baby steps. Edit 4. To answer the person who asked if I ever told Malcolm, my mentor, about all this, yes, and he's been incredibly supportive. He actually offered to come with me to the coffee meeting as backup, but I decided to handle it myself. In retrospect, might have been nice to have the reinforcement lol. Edit 5. Some people are asking if I'm dating anyone. Honestly, no. Between running my business and now all this family stuff, I barely have time to sleep, let alone date. Maybe someday when things calm down. Edit 6. Just realized I didn't mention what happened with the nanny situation. Jade is actually going to keep working for Holly even after they move to the new apartment. She and the kids have such a great bond now, and Holly says having that consistent support has been literally life-saving.